Welcome to the tutorial, everyone. What we're going to be doing is running a template with multiple clients or dynamic content, basically. So let's go ahead and get the footer in from our last project so we can have a kind of a finalized page, have a look and feel. I'm just going to use your basic Bootstrap concepts together with the footer tag so that we can have a bit of a grid system. This way you can have your copyright, logos, whatever you need down here. You can kind of separate them out. But this is all static HTML for the footer. Nothing really crazy here. I initially started out as a fixed, and then I changed it because there was no need for it, but not a big deal. We'll go ahead and get the CSS together for the footer. And one thing that also rings true, since the footer does hold a container, and in our style sheets, we said container has a padding on the top of like 80. We can't do that, so let's go back and have it, it'll be main. That way, all the containers will look normal. They won't have an 80 pixels blank like we did earlier. So the footer, right here you can see I'm just going to have a box shadow division and kind of placing it where it needs to be on the bottom. Like I said, it is fixed here now. We're not gonna keep it like that. And let's go ahead and get that padding top. Like I said, this needs to be something just for the main tag. It's a global. All the themes are gonna have this 80 pixel padding on the top. So let's just use the tag main as opposed to container, since containers are used in multiple places. And so now we're just back where we belong. Put a little padding for the footer, so as you can see we got 15 padding. Alright, let's get this content put together. Now I'm just going to take out the HTML within the banner text, and we'll be using that. So the banner text is now, the ID is just the target where this HTML is going to go once we tell it to where to go. So I'm going to build a file called local data.js, and I'm going to go ahead and put my content in there, just the text. We got to get out all the double quotes because that will break our string. Basically all our content is going to be stored in strings, and as long as we don't have anything breaking that string, that will work great. So we can either escape the strings or we can replace them, or I'm sorry, the double quotes. Anyway, let's go ahead and call this some kind of variable that's relevant, and we'll build some JSON with this content. And I'll name it coinciding with the HTML target tags that we have labeled down on the HTML index page. Okay, so let's go ahead and let it know that its local data is available. We want to put it above the functionality.js because we're going to be talking about that very data in functionality.js, and so we need to load it first. Otherwise, functionality.js won't know what we're talking about. Now let's go ahead and reference that target with that ID element. So banner text ID, that inner element needs to have this data. So data, and since the data starts off with the brackets, the square brackets, it needs to have enumerated. So we would put 0 and then close the brackets, and then it would be banner text. We're going to do the same thing here. Let's make a target ID like tease 1 because it's kind of like a tease for the first post on the page. And I'll go ahead and build out the content accordingly. So the tease 1 text, and I'll just grab its HTML. Make it tease 2. Let's get this HTML ready to go. I'm just going to create a file temporarily so I can tear out all the all the quotes and double quotes and whatnot. And maybe write something a little more relevant to our project so that you can see the difference. I don't want to have the same content for each client. So let's just go ahead and write something unique. Now, there is some interesting things about this. So I can swap this same page, can have multiple client contents. That's great. So they can choose their look and their feel. They can have all the content talking about their product. And you're just running one page. And based on what the URL says, it shows something different. So once you get a domain per each user, it will literally, that domain can be pointed there and it will show something different. Or let's say, for instance, hypothetical, you went to like the NFL or like a baseball webpage where like all the players or all the teams are listed. So basically, if you go to like NFL.com or MajorLeagueBaseball.com or something, it's one page, but then you can ultimately swap out all the team's content, all their theme colors and logos, and it would still just be the same page. Isn't that neat? So one page has everyone's content. It's dynamic. Whatever team you want to look at, it's going to pop up their content, even though you're only having to support one page as a web developer. Here we go. We're testing out now. And as you can see, I'm going to write a little bit about what each one says. So based on the URL parameters, different content will be displayed. And as you can see here, that's what's happening. By doing this, along with the change in theme, this could potentially be a template for many clients in one spot. So just me trying to explain what we're doing here, and we'll do some testing. Now remember, the banner is kind of an absolute, so it's, as you can see, it's running off because it's not living in a grid. We have it on a position absolute because we didn't want to mess with it with the filter from its background. So now it is becoming a bit of a problem, and let's go ahead and do the max width of banner text at 60 so that no matter what we're doing, it never goes off the screen. This is the problem with taking text and using it in position absolute. And it will take it out of whatever grid it lives in. And you have to now curate it very specific to all sizes. So I don't really recommend doing that. If I were you, I would not do the filter for background images. If you can, I would do that in Photoshop and then bring it in. Because, like I said, adding a filter to something, you're decimating all the text and stuff that lives in that div. So you wanted to change the background and by using filter, but unfortunately it changes everything else too. So yeah, like I said, if you have to do it, I'm showing you how. Otherwise, I would stay out of that. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is also switch up some of the fonts. So when we switch over from a different client, it actually changes fonts, and it's super noticeable too within the body. So like I said, let's say I go to like the Major League Baseball page and I want to look up the Pirates. Okay, it's the one same template, but the Pirates have chosen one font and one color scheme, and then they got one logo, and then I want to go, the Anaheim Angels, and it's the same exact page, but it's their content now. So I got to show their logo and their theme. So this is going to work perfectly based on the parameters in the URL. So like if you said you had like your kid was in hockey or baseball, and the whole league needs to be represented somewhere. So you got one page, and each team's content gets swapped out based on the client's request on that same page. It's really easy to manage if you only have everything in one spot. You don't have to go and, we changed this, so I have to go to 25 pages to change one thing 25 times. So as you can see, we don't need to do that if you host all on one page. I would recommend doing this for a lot of things. Now, keep in mind, if you start doing something like this, like 2 different clients, your descriptive metadata is going to need to be changed out too. So remember that is one of the issues you're going to have to concentrate on. How do I update that metadata based on which client, if it is in fact 2 different clients? So that is the one tricky part. But like I said, if this is something for like a league and everybody can just share the same page and you just need to swap out the content and the theme, then this is perfect. So let's keep going with the text changes here. And just a little bit of changes up, and you'll see the result. I'm importing a whole bunch of other fonts, but let's go ahead. See the difference in the font here. It's completely different now. And I'm just testing all the responsive. Let's throw some new data in. So let's say this is another client or team on the same league, for example's sake. I'll do a little tailoring to change up the content so that you can see I'm escaping. You can use double quotes, just escape them. And I'm going to spell typically wrong, and then say this data will be requested when the page loads based on the URL parameter values. The site reaches out and grabs the appropriate data and then to fill out the template. So basically, whatever I tell it in the parameters is going to tell this JavaScript which content to grab, either the client 1 or client 2. And you can continue this kind of strategy in JSON for multiple pages as well. Like I've only declared 3 targets where I want my HTML to go. I could have unlimited amount of targets. So I could really, beef this up to be a very large website, and everything, and it's multiple. See how we're switching back and forth based on the old tutorial option. Now we're going to do it with the new one. Let's write the JavaScript, and I'll show you exactly how you grab the parameters. Unlimited amount of parameters can be put in here. And I think the limit in the string of is around 400 characters can be allowed up there, so that's the limit I know of. So let's get going. I need to go ahead and get the window location, make sure that it's a string. I need to know the length of it. Now, if someone has put a hashtag at the end of my lovely link, it'll break. What does work is if you want to have these links, make sure you put an ampersand at the end of them all. That way it will work correctly. If someone puts a hashtag, it'll break everything. And I'm here writing some HTML to make sure that doesn't happen. If I find a hashtag at the end of the link, I don't want it to break, so I shall now just take it off. But like I said, if you're going to send out links to people and you have a bunch of parameters, make sure the very last character is an ampersand. Okay, so let's get it started. Now, I need to find out the URL, and if it has a question mark, then we get going here at the split. Now I want to go past the question mark, and we're going to start splitting at every ampersand. So we can have multiple parameters, and they're divided by an ampersand, and they will also be divided by an equal sign. And so what I'm doing is I'm wandering through the string, dicing up things based on an equal sign and their question mark and their ampersand. So we keep splitting, and then once we got them all split, we map. And everything in the URL needs to be decoded because that's how they communicate. So we'll just run that through, and we will let it know. What are we dealing with now? Does this basically are we going to be equaling something called client? Because that's the parameter we're looking for. Is that what this pair 0 equals? Because pair 0 is the key and pair 1 is the value. So if pair 0 in our URL parameter equals client that we've split apart, then okay, well what's the value of client? Well, that's going to be pair 1. And so here we go. And we just run through, and coincidentally I'm only looking for client right now, but I could put tons of parameters and we could get any number of details from the URL and fire off function after function after function based on what those URL parameters are, and I'm just using client right now. So let's go ahead and identify those HTML targets where we want this data to go. Now the data is going to be determined by the design options array up top And so we're going to tell it in the URL parameters, hey, this is the client. And we're going to say, okay, well, within the array that we're expecting, which one matches the one we were given in the URL parameter? And it's either option 1 or option 2. So that's the one we're going to go for. In the index of the array, that will tell us what data. And here's where you can see I've targeted teaser 1 and teaser 2. Those where the data is going to be applied to based on my JavaScript. And let's go ahead and test it now that I've cleaned up that one piece. And as you can see, I've got my client 2 here. Now the option 1 is going to show that. So yeah, basically I'm going to take out the footer because that's broken. I don't like the fixed thing with making a head over there. We just keep it at the bottom, looks better. So now let's just test it. As you can see, both clients are running off the same template with different themes, different fonts, different content, and it's working on responsive in every responsive option I'm available to. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks.